Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Hi.
What's going on?
It's been a while.
It's been a minute.
Thank God.
It's been a minute, but we're back. We haven't
And
forgot
today's
you
special
guys.
too. Today is a special day.
It is a very special day, and we're going to get right into it. Christine, Are you ready to go?
Let's do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another amazing episode of the Get Reelisms podcast, episode 102. 102 episodes.
Yeah.
I am Adam Chase Rennie.
And I am Christine Chen.
You thought we forgot about you guys? Come on.
We might have a little bit.
We might have. We're getting it together. We've been busy. You know, part of it was my fault too. And you know, it was a whole thing. And also it was the holidays. What do you want from us?
You know what? It all
free
this
podcasts
summed up with one word: life. Life, guys. Life.
That's right. But Christine, you've been Miss International lately, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been globetrotting. So see, everything can be summed up with one word, which is life.
Mm-hmm.
So today is special because today is the Lunar New Year, to be politically correct. Lunar New Year. Also, you might be hearing it called the Chinese New Year as well, because a lot of Chinese people celebrate it. But it's the new year according to the lunar calendar. Now, if you want me to explain beyond that, I could tell you not much. But I do know that it's an extremely important holiday for a lot of Asian Americans around the world. It's something that I always celebrated growing up as a kid, and I've really continued the tradition, and it's really watered down to two things: food and friends. Okay, three things, and alcohol. Food, friends, and alcohol.
Yeah, alcohol with food,
yes,
along with friends.
Yes,
yeah.
That is the extent
trifecta
of my Chinese or Lunar New Year. So I presented this to my awesome roommates, a friend of the podcast, Roxy McDaniel, actually both now too, Casey, her husband. And luckily, they are party planners. So
they're party havers for sure too.
Party havers. So while I'm casually taking my time on this podcast, Roxy's freaking out in the other room about what's needed for this party that I'm technically throwing.
and you could spend an hour or so with me talking about the international shit you've been up to.
Yes.
So you talked about it last time on the podcast, which was 3 weeks ago, I guess.
Yeah, 3 weeks ago.
Something like that. And you mentioned that you were going on a trip to the UK, but also France.
Yes.
As well,
okay. So
right?
This was my itinerary. So I spent about a good chunk of it was in England, London specifically. And then my writing partner, some of you guys might know, as also a friend of the podcast, Camille Gladney, she joined me for the last week of my Euro trip. And that's when we went Euro hopping. So we went, hopping is light. We went to Brussels in Belgium, and then that for one day. And then we hopped over to Luxembourg. And then we went to Paris, and we were there for 3 days. So it was short because her time is short, and so that was all there was. Then the next day we trained back to London, and she went immediately to the airport, Heathrow, and flew back to good old Shreveport, Louisiana. So
that's awesome.
It was cool. It was everybody should travel, especially travel somewhere that you don't speak the language. So for me, that was Paris. Well, I thought we were fine because Camille is supposed to know French, and she does, but I forget also that some people aren't very good under pressure. So my French was I was more like shameless about I just told everybody I wanted to eat something. That's
Yeah.
the only thing I can say.
Manger,
Manger quelque chose. Manger quelque chose. Vous voudrez manger quelque chose. That's literally all I could say. And it got me far. Because I could just say, I know how to say. I was like,
where do I go to eat?
yeah. J'habite, no, that's to live. To live is parler. Yeah. Je parlais un peu français.
Mm.
And then I would be, and then they're like, really? And I'm like, yes. I was like, and vous voudrez manger quelque chose, and then everybody start laughing. So it was a good intro to, no, you cannot speak French. I was like, oh yeah, I'm very aware, but I will use my 3 or 4 verses I know and entertain you significantly. So yes.
Listen, and I'm sure Camille would still probably have a better like situation than I would, because I took French in high school.
Yeah.
With the idea that, oh yeah, no, I'm for sure going to be fluent in French. Absolutely not. Like barely learned French as it was, barely passed those classes.
Oh
And
no.
I only speak like, yeah, I'm horrible in school. That's just that's a whole other thing. But yeah, I do know, I can understand French. Reading it, I can understand it pretty well.
Yeah.
I will say. But speaking it, having a conversation, I speak at like a, less than a first grade level, like that's kindergarten level.
Yeah, it's like me in Japanese. I took Japanese, so it was like, it's Asian. I'm Asian.
Yeah, and that was the thing. It was like, my dad's Moroccan, and he's like, yeah, he speaks French too. It's like, yeah, I think I could figure this out. It'll be easy. No, it's not.
No, it was not. Yeah, for me, Japanese was very difficult. Yeah, because of the
Was that the only other language you learned? Japanese?
No, I know Spanish. Yeah,
Spanish?
Japanese was just during undergrad. So I did Spanish for 4 years in high school, and I'm really glad I did, because now when I was starting to look at French, I can surprisingly read it pretty well, because there's so much similarities with Spanish. So I can like putz my way through and be like, oh, I know kind of what they're saying, So it's just the pronunciation part that's a little bit difficult. But,
right. Informing the sentences too.
Yeah, but I'm on this kick of I love libraries. I used to not need to go to libraries as much, but in LA, if you want to work somewhere and not pay $8 for a coffee, the library is your best bet with incredible Wi-Fi. So I discovered the whole language section of audiobooks. So now I just learn French in the car while I'm stuck in traffic.
Listen, you're going to be there for hours.
That's how I learned all the stuff that I knew. My
really?
Of French was the hours of time that I sat in traffic in LA. I just sit there and repeat, yeah, just over and over and over again.
You can always rely on yourself to make sure you're going to occupy your time with that, at least education, rather than just like staring off into space, just wanting to die in traffic.
That was like my big thing, is that traffic is an inevitability in LA. So what can I control to make that experience better? And and it for me is feel like I'm being productive. So hence putting on audiobooks for languages, then I can feel like, hey, I'm not wasting this time. I'm actually learning French, So, and it's worked. I know more French than I did before. So yeah.
I should probably do that. I just waste my time listening to podcasts and stuff.
Podcasts are the same. For the longest
time, not really. If you're listening to like a comedian like Bill Burr screaming at the microphone about the NFL.
Okay.
It's
a little bit different. Yeah.
The
podcasts I listen to are like nerd podcasts. Yeah. So how I built
I like those too, for sure.
Yeah.
But I like low IQ shit that it's almost like things. Yeah, and I usually when I turn on podcasts, it's almost like I'm tuning in and out of it. Usually, it's like a conversation that's I'm not a part of, but I can just listen in.
Like people who are listening right now. You guys are just listening to us chat. You're not
Yeah,
actually
basically.
conversing. Yeah.
Or sometimes people do it right before they fall asleep. I don't understand that. Friends of mine do that all the time. They're just like, oh yeah, I listen to a podcast and I go to sleep. I'm like, I can't listen to people talk when I'm trying to fall asleep. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Usually what does it for me is if I read, then I usually will fall
Reading,
asleep.
yeah.
Yeah. That's a good one because it like calms your brain and also I read nerdy shit. So then usually that puts me to sleep. So
You read nerdy shit. What do you mean? Like
like
articles
social psychology books and stuff. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I read nerdy shit, which are comic books.
Oh, sorry.
So
Our definition of nerdy is different. I'm actually
sometimes
noticing that. So when I say nerdy, I think of somebody who like factual math, like what would you call that? Application knowledge?
Really fucking smart.
when other people say nerdy, they're talking like comic books, anime, and Star Wars and stuff like that. I just think of that as not. I don't really classify as nerdy. I mean,
hold on. It's education. I'm kidding. Anime, I feel like Dragon Ball Z is education to me.
Yeah.
It's about a hero's journey, overcoming your struggles.
Whatever. But yeah, so no, I that's what I do during traffic and stuff like that. And but when you interviewed me, or not interviewed me, when we did our last podcast, I was getting ready to go on our little Euro hop thing, and I was like, "It's just going to be impossible to coordinate time zones and stuff." My gosh, time zones are the worst. I can't. I just have to Google.
Time zones are a little crazy.
Yeah, I messed up. This is a big not so smart moment for me. I bought the ticket to London, and on the ticket it said the arrival was the same day, like the date was still the same, so my arrival was December 7th. It says December 7th on the ticket, and it says like 10 a.m. or something. And so every time I look, I'm very bad when it comes to I'm not bad. I'm kind of lackadaisical sometimes. It'll be like a day before, 2 days before, and people will be like, "So what time is your flight?" I'm like, "I have no clue. I think it's like in this general time. I know it's in the morning, type thing." It drives my parents nuts because they're like, "Well, you already know what time it's going to be, what gate, what thing, what airline number, all this stuff." And I'm just like, "I don't know. I know I'm just flying out tomorrow."
Really?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm very like, whatever.
Wow. It gives me anxiety with we talked about this before, but yeah.
But I think that's the way I deal with it is.
Okay.
Yes. If I don't, then it's not, because on the day of, once I have all the info, then it's fine, type thing. I know how to show. So I'll look at it maybe the night before or something. Then that decreases the window of time that I am super anxious. Yeah. So anyway, long story short, I looked at the end date and it said December 7th, 10 a.m. And I'm like, cool, I'm arriving in December 7th, 10 a.m. I woke myself up at midnight on December 7th, being like, that's impossible. I can't arrive on December 7th at 10 a.m. if it's December 7th, midnight, right?
Yeah.
So I forgot to count that London is 6 hours ahead. So it should have said on my ticket. It should have said on my ticket that I was actually arriving on December 8th at 10 a.m. So, but they didn't write it on the ticket. But the problem was I had booked my train tickets and shit for December 7th at 1 p.m.
Shit.
So at that last minute, I was switching tickets. I was telling my people I was staying with, the host, hey, I was significantly effed up and got all the times messed up and stuff. But they were probably like, "Oh, you dumb American." But it was just.
Is that what they told you?
No, they didn't. They were very kind. But
right.
I feel like that's what they're.
Don't assume that they think they're just like, this stupid American. What is wrong with her?
Yeah, but
there's no way. Everybody, I'm sure at some point everybody messed with that. I didn't even think about that. When you mentioned it, I was like, what would be the problem? And then you're just like, oh no, time happens when you travel
Right.
too.
Yeah. I kept sitting there thinking, I was
I'm like, fuck.
I was
Didn't
like,
think about that.
is that possible? Yeah.
Doesn't it
So
freeze when you're in the air?
I was-
Shit.
like, huh? I was like, does time go back?
Yeah.
I
I
was,
thought we go back in time.
I was so
We time
confused.
travel in commercial air flights. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought so.
I wish it was like I was smarter and like came up with this like faster, but it took a while. I was sitting there being like, that doesn't make sense. And I
No.
looked, but then I kept looking at the ticket and it says December 7th, 10 a.m. And I'm like, maybe it's like a London thing. And then I went and Googled and everything, and it was like, oh, it's actually December 8th. I was like, oh my God. So anyway,
It's probably a
Delta,
London thing.
you should probably change on your ticket and make it clear that the person arrives the day after December 8th at 10. Because some tickets do that. Like United will say that. Like on the ticket, it will be like 6 hours ahead. The date is December 10th, type thing. But that was the first time I'd seen that for.
Well, I mean, I was about to ask because with all the like the airline struggles that's been happening nowadays, like especially during the holiday season,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if the whole infrastructure of like ticket printing all the way to like fucking baggage claim is just all sorts of messed up.
Yeah.
I'd
don't know.
assume because these airlines are kind of
Struggling.
it's
I mean, my
it's pretty
flight
bad.
was pretty empty actually, from not the domestic stuff, but the international stuff.
Well, I
From
honestly don't even know if Delta was affected with all the airline shit. I think it was mostly Southwest. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure. But doesn't matter. I think a lot of these airlines were getting heavily affected
railed.
by it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
yeah, my flight to and from Heathrow to Utah it was very empty. It was great because I got to like have a whole row of seats to myself,
Really?
So,
Fuck
yeah, it was lovely.
That is awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, so everybody out there, make sure to, if you want to travel somewhere, you can make it work. You should. I highly recommend, now I'm going to sound like I work for them, but I do not, trusted house sitters. So if you need a code, let me know. But it's like it's like the movie The Holiday without the house swap, but you're house sitting for somebody abroad. Usually it involves looking after someone's pet.
Is that the Kate Winslet character?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I house sat in London and took care of a dog.
Yeah.
Yes. I wrote a whole script about it. Yeah.
You took care of a doggy? That's awesome.
So I have a feature. I wrote a feature when I was in
while you're there?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I wrote a feature, finished a short. So I did some work. Yeah. But I don't know, I feel inspired when I'm somewhere different, So you should try that if you're able to, for writing. I don't know if it's different for everybody, but for me, if I put myself in a completely different environment, and I think I've mentioned this on previous episodes, like it completely opens up my mind.
Yeah. It inspires creativity when you shift environments like that.
Yeah, Camille did the same thing. She didn't finish her script, but she got a good progress. She's writing one as well. But she's writing like an epic, like Camille style, Camille script. And when I say that is Camille loves period pieces. Things that are not low budget, that probably cost millions of dollars to make type thing. Epic, like Forrest Gump type scripts, so she's writing one that takes place in the 1700s, the 1800s or something. Yeah, nuts.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's super cool. So but that's what she was working on when she came to visit. So yeah,
That's great.
writers being writers.
Are you helping her out with the script, or is she
No,
helping you out with your
no,
script? No,
no. I think we're both
kind
just
of
like,
giving each other distances and stuff
yes, we're
when it
both
comes to
like,
that.
we're in the same space and we're both writing. And so that in itself, I think that energy helps
Mhm.
us. And then I will send her
And you
stuff.
two already wrote a script, you know? It's like you
Yeah.
already done that.
Yeah. And so I'll send her my stuff for feedback, because she's like, I mean, she wants to be a script doctor and she would be an amazing one. She's gives incredible notes. So for all of those people out there who have scripts that need suggestions as to how to improve your script, make sure to hire a script doctor. So because they went to school for that, to learn about structure and all that stuff, and they will offer great constructive feedback as to how to improve your script. So
Huh.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Shit.
Script doctor. Yeah. So maybe you need one at some point.
I probably do. This is my first script that I'm writing. So yeah, I probably, yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. The other option is to go join like a writer's group type thing, and that you guys can like all table read and
Yeah,
submit.
and I've done that before a while ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those are helpful. Those are neat. I like those. I learned a lot about writing during that time.
Yeah, the writers group. Yeah, I think writers groups are great. It's like a good way to guilt yourself into writing faster, because you're like, oh shit, I have to share 10 pages today, and I didn't write 10 pages, so I got to write it right now, 2 hours before my meeting. Yeah.
Yeah,
But sometimes you need that. Yeah. Sometimes you need that little get your ass
and sometimes
line.
something like comes out like super because it's like your first like given instinct with every single thing that you're writing. So
yeah,
it's
exactly.
like it's literally the most honest and the most truthful because it's in the front cortex of your brain pushed
You're not
out.
overthinking it. Yeah.
Not overthinking it at all, which is exactly my problem.
You're overthinking
Especially
it.
Yeah, well, that, but also life, and then also I work too because I need money. I don't make money writing, unfortunately. I wish I did.
Yeah.
But I go in and out, so I'll be doing that, and then I'll put that to the side when I'm trying to allocate my time. But I got some time now, and I really want to engage it with my full attention and stuff like that.
Yeah. How long is your script right now that you're writing?
How long is it?
Mm-hmm.
I got it to just a little over 100 pages. And the first go around that I had it, I had like, it was all over the place. It was just like, it was just like a giant mishmash of everything. And it was like 190 pages.
Yeah.
That first go around. I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, this is just like, I had scenes that just went absolutely nowhere. It was just like, it was just so much. It was so much.
Yeah. But you need those though. You need the barf scripts where you just barf up a bunch of ideas.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And it taught me like what's essential and what really can carry the scene. And also I learned like you don't necessarily have to be like, well, I got to cut this entire scene. It's like, well, you can doctor some of the scenes. You can take a piece of one scene from there and then
combine it with another. Yeah.
You can stitch some shit together.
Yeah.
And I learned you can do that while going through my script over and over again. You know, I realized like there's really no rules when it comes to writing.
I mean,
there really isn't. Structurally, yes, especially if you want to present it. You know,
there are guidelines. Okay,
there are guidelines for sure.
Nobody is going to police.
But in terms of creativity,
sure,
like where you want your story to go, like sky's the fucking limit.
Right.
You know what I mean? Which is crazy to think that like back in America, I'm talking about in the 40s, the 30s, the 50s, the 60s, the only writers, which were predominantly white male writers, only had like the boundary of just that, of just a white male. And when I got into this, I realized that like there's so much to offer, especially, I mean, like, of course you get those crazy scripts and like movies and stuff that have like, you know, so much diversity and so much culture and shit like that. And that's great and all. But you realize, like, watching older films and stuff like that, I was watching Singing in the Rain.
Yes.
All white people. It was just like, it was one of those things where I was like, this is like mind bending. Like, I thought, like, you know, like at some point somebody's going to be like, this feels like, you know, just a lot of the same shit. You know what I mean? It's just the same one thing, and that's it. And some cultures have done that, you know, respectively in their own countries, for sure.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that, like, I think artists are driven by the context of history at that moment, right?
Right.
And so in that context, at that moment, it was predominantly white for people who had education and access to it and access to opportunities that will allow them to write, you know? So that's the fun part about film, and about, it's interesting debate wise too, because there's the movement of cancel culture and people going to these old movies and being like, we can't show these anymore, we're going to cancel some of the stuff. And I understand why, because in the current context, the ideas and views expressed in some of these films are extremely outdated. But it's also a way to learn about what was going on historically at that point and realize that we are beyond that. So canceling, I don't know if it's necessarily a great idea, because then you don't have proof of what didn't work and understand, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think
it's a time capsule of that moment.
Exactly.
And of all the flaws of that time and all the shit, you see it on screen. In
I
some ways
had
and
a
more.
really interesting conversation with someone yesterday. So they had to do an analysis of recent Disney films, not Disney like animated, but just Disney owned IP. And they ended up writing stuff. I think they ended up watching it was Thor, the new Mulan, and some other stuff. And then they had to compare it to what was in existence 10 years ago. And the conclusion that the guy told me was that a lot of the female characters, that the Disney was trying so hard to show that they supported women, that they made the women characters completely flawless, like with like
almost like Mary
extremely
Sue's.
smart, like, and you know what's interesting was my initial reaction was like, well, that's not fair, because there's so much content out there that's like where women are portrayed as like sex objects and all this stuff. Like, did you forget about that? And then he said something that I was like, oh shit. He said, doesn't that say something about the character, and doesn't it kind of go against the purpose if you have to dumb down the men around them to make the woman feel stronger? Isn't it stronger character building if she's matched against the people who are around her, but she overcomes and triumphs above it, you know, type thing? And I was kind of mind blown about that, because I'm like, you're absolutely right. We're doing a disservice by skewing, you know, wanting so much to hit the agenda of feminism or like women empowerment and stuff, that like, then we're creating characters that, if we have to dumb down the men around the leading woman, then we're not doing our jobs as a writer to show that, like, you know, do you know what I'm trying to say?
It's counterintuitive. It just it feels like you're going so far 180 in the other direction that you're forgetting and completely dismissing a whole other you know, subspecies of because like they're right though. For
They're
years,
right.
women are portrayed as, damsels in distress,
Yes.
Bond girls, those
Yep.
types of
Yeah.
women, which, yeah, for better for worse, are marginalized, very horrible. It's gross.
Yeah.
And even if it's done now, it's so
Outdated
weird.
and
Yeah,
weird.
it's
Yeah.
just it's crazy. But I'm of that idea too, where it's just like, I feel like if you're going so much of an overcorrection that
Right.
you're completely missing the entire point, because it's it doesn't have to be just for the boys, right?
Right.
It's for everybody, and
Right.
it's not just a boys world anymore. And we can accept the fact that women characters can not only be so strong in their own
But
might,
flawed as well. Yeah.
but so flawed,
Yeah.
and they can overcome that,
Right.
from the first act and understanding what her wants and needs are, then that journey in the second act to then coming to the third to overcome all of that and return home understanding where she came from. That
Right.
is the true meaning of like
The
what a
hero's
journey,
journey. Yeah.
yeah, to have for a character, and to have a
Yeah.
character just be like. And another great example of that too, speaking of Disney, is the recent Star Wars films. I don't know if you
That's exactly.
watched.
He mentioned one of them. He said
So
like
yeah, the
Ray.
character Ray, yeah,
Yes, that's what
it
he
was
said. He said,
very, it
yeah,
was
he said
very
like
much.
Ray could get into a spaceship and just immediately know how to operate it better than the person who's been operating it for years. And
And
then Ray could immediately, it was just
yeah,
like there was no obstacles basically.
and the whole premise of Star Wars in the original trilogy was Luke Skywalker having his journey, because I don't know if you're familiar with the old Star Wars
Mm-hmm.
films, but for those of you who aren't familiar, basically like he had his own hero's journey, but it's sort of split into three films. As his course of being a warrior, a Jedi warrior, carries a lightsaber, uses the Force, pushes things, and pushes rocks. Essentially. So he becomes the most powerful warrior, Jedi warrior in the galaxy. But the journey that he got to that point were some heavy losses. And even in the end of the second film, which is like in the 80s, ended in such a bad note for the character, because the character lost. He lost his arm, realized his dad is a fucking bad guy,
Mm-hmm.
and the Empire's trying to fucking hunt him and shit like that. That's crazy. He
Yeah.
lost. We never had a sense of loss with
Right.
Ray. And with Ray,
Yeah.
the only sense of loss was that at the final film, well, she's technically a granddaughter of Darth Sidious, who is also a bigger bad guy. He's like a puppet master for the dark side.
Okay.
And he basically, I don't know. It's just like, it's a long roundabout way of basically having this character just be phoned in, just absolutely phoned in, and not have the proper journey like Luke Skywalker has. And a lot of people want to argue that even Luke Skywalker didn't have a good journey with these three new films. But that's neither here nor there. With Ray, it was disheartening because I love that character in the first movie. The first movie, she had so much potential, and it was going to be like set up to be something like really fucking awesome. And I was very excited about that.
Yeah.
But just like you said, they made it such an overcorrection with all of this shit that it felt like the character was meaningless. There's nothing there and nothing real with the character. And then I know people are going to be like, Adam, Star Wars isn't real. I know. I couldn't agree more. Yes, it's not real. But the characters in which they live and embody, we can all relate to. We can all relate being to a loser. We can all relate to being a winner and having our ups,
Yeah.
So we want to explore that. And I feel like that's where the good writing lies within.
Yeah.
You know?
The what makes
It's
us
so
human.
interesting though,
Yeah.
that study. And I didn't think about it till right now. And I guess
Yeah.
I've always thought about that, but I just, for some reason, I
Well,
was just
he
thinking
pointed
like,
out like you can really see it in the animated Mulan versus the live action Mulan. So the animated Mulan, like she had a bunch of flaws, like she wasn't perfect, she was all, but in the live
right.
action, she's just like smarter than all the dudes.
Somehow she
All the
can,
dudes are
yeah,
stupid.
climb super
Basically,
fast. Yeah.
all the villains are not smart at all. And that's the problem. He's like, that that almost takes away from her power because you have to make everybody around her appear like they're not her equal. Then what's the point, right? And I was like, you know what, that makes a lot of sense, because the best hero versus villain stories are the ones where the villain is matched with,
Oh, evenly.
yeah,
Yeah,
like Batman and Joker, like Joker's not
absolutely.
dumb, Joker's extremely smart. Yeah. And so
He
that's what
appears to
makes
be
us,
though, for
yeah, and
sure.
it's that's what makes it very interesting, is that they're matched because of that. And I was like, oh shit,
Hmm.
that makes sense. It
But
I don't
imagine if
know.
Joker was a girl, you know what I mean? Or
Yeah,
imagine Batman was Batgirl,
right.
and
Yeah,
she had her own Joker, you
yeah,
know, it would have been the same shit if
yeah,
you follow,
yeah.
those core
But that,
tenets.
but I think that's the thing, is like, oh, now I'm like going back and thinking about the stuff that I've written, and I want to, because women empowerment is such a huge theme in so many of my films.
Yeah.
But it's right. It can be easy to skew the other way, where you are building up a character so much because you're pushing a certain agenda that women are amazing, which they are,
Hmm.
but you are denying them the opportunity to show that their strength is in them being able to overcome their weaknesses. Yeah. And their flaws. And I was like, and now I'm like, oh shit. Yeah. So I didn't, because I didn't realize,
Well,
because
I
I
feel like your
thought
female characters have had
are flawed,
overcome
right?
struggles.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it really makes me think about it, because I didn't really think about it in context of current films. And he's right about it. It was like so many of the female characters, but Ray was who he was specifically was mentioning, was like,
Really?
yeah,
Yeah, that's
he's
interesting.
like, she just like goes in and like automatically knows how to fly a plane, and then like good, and
That's crazy.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it's like, oh yeah, you're right. Like, it's like, then if she's already that amazing, then like what's the point? Exactly. Like, what's the point? Yeah. So, oh, that was interesting.
Yeah. No, and thank you for sharing that too,
Yeah, a
because
little
I
sidetrack.
didn't think about zooming out even farther than that and just be like, well, no, it's like repeated history with like non-clever, but they think it's clever. It's just like, oh, well, this is all about going to be all about women, and they're all amazing, and they're all, it's like, and yeah, I couldn't agree more. They are. Um, but I feel like I've learned the most, at least from the women in my life, who were a lot. Has taught me like,
Seeing them struggle, yeah. Seeing them
well, the
fight,
darkness,
yeah.
just the darkness of it all. Like I had women even tell me like how to protect myself. When it comes to, like just as simple as like walking home at night, it's just
Mhm.
like it's I know it's a very different world for women, very, very different, but it's still nonetheless like one of those things where you want to make sure that it's fairly talked about, but not so much where it feels like we're negating a margin of people, but we're
Yeah,
also not boosting them where they're just super gods.
right,
You
right,
know what I
right.
mean? It's just
Yeah.
like we're all human at the end of the day. Like
Yes.
that's kind of the message of, or the through line of a lot of these films, or most films, if you
We're
want to
all
really
human.
think about it. You know, um, yeah, man, that's crazy. But
Yeah.
how did we? I don't even know how we got there,
I'm not sure either.
but we got there. That was
But we
awesome.
got there.
I
Yeah,
like
but we
that
got
tangent.
there. Yeah.
Was there anything else you want to talk about with France or any of the writing
Um,
stuff that you're getting into when you were
no, I think
trapped
right
in a
now
home
it's
with
just
a
a lot
doggy?
of right now it's just a lot of development. That's where I am right now. Just trying to figure out what the next project is going to be. It's like throwing spaghetti at a wall. I guess we could talk about goals since it is Lunar New Year. Yes,
Yes.
I think my biggest thing this year is I really want more opportunities to direct. And so just really honing whatever it will take for me to be able to do that. So that whether it's writing or trying to get into applying for fellowships and stuff like that. And
Applying for what?
uh,
Fellowships?
fellowships. So in LA, there's a lot of incentives to help women have opportunities to direct in TV. And
Oh,
so, yeah, so there's fellowships like the NBC Forward that I just applied to. Um, there's a few other ones that are coming up that I will apply to, and they allow you to kind of shadow somebody who is already directing in the TV industry, and then some of them allow you to direct like an episode in a TV series and stuff like that. So, fingers crossed. That's my
fuck
hope,
yeah.
is to get into it, but it's highly competitive, of course. So we're just trying to do that or find a mentor or something that can get me to the next level. That's my biggest goal for this coming year. Uh, Either develop something that we're going to shoot soon, and also develop my getting used to being like I'm doing a much better job. I don't go when I first meet someone, I don't immediately say I'm a first AD. Now I'm very cognizant and aware that the first thing I tell them is I am a director, and I go and say, but right now my bread and butter, my day job, I call it my day
Mm-hmm.
job, is I'm a first assistant director. Yeah, but I first and foremost am a director. So just really drilling that into my head and developing that aspect. So I would love management. So I love here to be considered for a lot of the commercial directing and stuff like that. You have to be part of an agency or be represented by a talent agent. So that's what I'm working towards. And yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Yeah,
I'm excited for you.
honestly, I can't believe it's 2023.
I honestly can't believe it either. I'm panicking, anxious, but I'm happy because we're moving forward. That's just
We're moving forward.
and we're moving away from all that shit, whatever the fuck happened a couple of years ago. Can't even tell you what happened. I think there was a virus. I don't know. Fucking who knew? Um, yeah, yeah, it's one day at a time, but that seems like a really interesting challenge for you, and I'm
Yeah.
excited
How about
where
you?
it takes you.
Did you have any? I know it's not your New Year's, but
Um,
we didn't really talk about New Year's resolutions. We didn't really talk about New Year's, in
Not
fact.
really, yeah. But I'm also, I'm,
Yeah,
I don't want to be that guy. I'm not a New Year's resolution dude,
that's okay. I mean,
but
I wouldn't call these resolutions. I think they're just more like year
improvements.
goal. Yeah, improvements or
Yeah,
goals. Or,
I
yeah,
definitely have improvements for sure that I got to
yeah.
work on. Um, First
Anything that you
improvement,
would share? Yeah,
huh?
that's what you were about to do, and I cut you off. I said, anything you would like to share?
Yeah, I mean, it would just it's more like creative, so it's just like engage with the shit that I actually love and don't be afraid about it.
Mm,
Don't be just like, just doing something and be like, yeah, I want to do this, and then you do it and you're like, it's not going to work out, or
right.
it's just, because I keep psyching myself out, especially with this script,
Yeah.
and I got to be a little more confident in my decisions. And I feel like my life decisions have been always with not a lot of confidence.
Mhm.
And the only confident decision that I've made in it, and I was talking about this with a friend of mine, and like the only confident decision I've ever made truly in my life was the pursuit of film.
Mm.
Was literally the pursuit of getting to you, or getting here to Austin, then getting to you, and then getting into, you know, the film industry and working consistently, you
Mhm.
know, which is like, I mean, 5 years ago, if you told me that, I would be shitting myself. I would be like, you're fucking what? You're in the art department and you're what? And it's like, yeah, but dude, you're going to be a PA for a minute. And it's just, you're still a PA, by the way. You need to make money and you got bills and shit. So you're still going to do PA shit.
Yeah.
The art shit is going to go, you know, in and out.
But
But,
I think you
you know,
pinpointed something really important. I think you're like you, and I think about this often too. You said yourself 5 years ago would be shitting his pants knowing where you are right now. That's how I
yeah,
think about it. I'm like, my 10-year-old
yeah.
self, myself 10 years ago would be thrilled to be where I am right now. Like working full time in the industry and surviving and all that stuff. And I think we just need to keep that in mind. I mean, there's at each
And that was
milestone,
my
there's
point. I was
right.
losing touch of that for
Yeah,
sure in the last
yeah,
couple of years. I lost
totally.
I lost touch of that. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, at each point, I feel like we're going to want to, achieve something else, something bigger. But I think especially in the last, I think what the pandemic has taught us and the years following that, the recent years, what I've learned is like, don't wait, like
Yeah.
that's part of the reason why I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna take this trip, like don't wait. You
You
just
know,
don't know,
yeah. You
and
inspired me with that too. Especially with this podcast, like with some of the attitude that you've had, even with Ursley. Even with Ursley, it was just like, yeah, I wrote a mermaid film. You know, it's just like, wow, really? Okay. Interesting. And it's like, yeah, I thought about it, just chilling in a pool with Kelly one day, and it's like,
yep.
yeah, now it's a thing, you know, because for anyone else, probably it would have just lived and died at that conversation by the pool. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it probably would have been kaput eons ago, but you followed through with that, you know, and
follow through.
that's
Yes, that's
crazy.
key. Follow
And
through.
you've inspired me with that
It's
for
funny because
sure.
I'm good at about it when it comes to career and business and stuff like that. But what I've had to work on the last few years has been me in my personal life follow through. I've been very
Mm,
bad about that, which is really
yes.
weird. I think most people have the opposite problem. So, so this year, well, not this year, but the year prior and stuff, my focus had been follow through for my own personal life. And so that's why travel was, and it's funny because I go and I'm like, why the hell didn't I do this sooner? And usually I feel like that's
Man.
what happens is
Yeah.
you jump into it, you're like, oh, it wasn't that hard, or I love it. Like, why didn't I do this sooner? I think most people will go into it having that realization, and it's a momentum thing. So the
I
more
mean,
you go in and
yeah.
do that and you realize that, the more you're willing to put in the risk. It gets less scary. And I think for me, I've been so focused on my career before that it's easier for me to be like, yeah, we're gonna make it, and there's nobody that is gonna just throw us money, so we're just gonna figure out how to get it, because that's just how I've had to do it for all the years prior, and it worked. So let's just make it happen, you know. So I just think you just can't wait. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I've told you this, but the movie Nomadland, there's a line in
Maybe.
there. There's a
Yeah.
scene in there where they're around the circle. And a lot of these people who are in it are real people, and they tell this beautiful story of like, I think the person's brother or something had a sailboat, and they never got to. He kept saying that when he retires, that he would sail around the world. Well, then the guy got cancer and
I
never got
remember.
to
Yeah.
be in that sailboat. And I feel like
Wow.
that's how I feel. Like,
Yeah.
you can't wait. I think that what the pandemic has shown us is that you cannot control the future, as we cannot control our past, what we control is presently what's happening. So if at this moment you feel like there's something you have to do, just, I know it's easier said often than done, but you have to just do it and not wait. Yeah, because you just don't know what will happen tomorrow. Right. So I think I look back, I'm like, oh, I know why I did it. Because I was always wondering, well, if I go take a trip, what are all the projects I'm going to miss out on? You know, what if, and sure, I definitely had that where I went and people messaged me. It was like, hey, could you work on this? I'm like, no, I'm out. But do I miss those projects? Sure, maybe I would not be as broke right now, but I think,
Yeah, any missed opportunity, like,
yeah,
like if you is that going to ruin your chances of X, Y, and Z in the future,
no,
like,
yeah,
yeah.
not at all. So yeah, I think if, since it is that our point, if anything, I think the New Year's or this coming year, I think if there's something that you wanted to do, don't wait. Make the plan as to how you can achieve that, because simply making that plan will show how achievable it is. Um, one of my plans now that's new is that I would like to start splitting time between the US and abroad. Like
Yeah.
I want to spend seasons here and then I want to spend a few months either living in London or wherever else that might be. But uh, that's important to me and I'm not going to wait for that. I'm going to figure it out. So yeah, you
You
got to
can't
finish
you
this
can't
freaking
wait for
script.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
you just gotta follow through.
Yeah, got
And
it's
then
the
you'll
follow
probably
through.
realize at the end that this shit was easy anyways. You could have just done
Yeah,
this earlier, ages ago,
earlier.
but it was a journey that counted.
Exactly.
So have we really been an hour?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, because
crazy.
right?
Because I have movie news we can talk too,
Tell,
but
see, yeah,
we
that's
can
cool.
end it if you have a heart out.
Well, I don't have a heart out.
But if
We
you
can
want to
talk
take
about
just
me.
5 minutes, we
Yeah, I'm
can
fine with
just
that.
do
Let's
some.
do some
There's really
movie
one
news.
big one that I
Okay.
think you already know about, and that is
Oh,
Alec Baldwin has been
yep.
charged with involuntary
Involuntary
manslaughter
manslaughter.
for
Yes, I do know
arrest.
that. Yep.
Um,
Several people, right? The AD as well, right? In the armor.
the armor, I didn't see the first AD, but that's interesting.
That's interesting. That's
I saw the
ridiculous.
armor for
Yeah.
sure, but I'm not surprised if it's also
AD, yeah.
the first AD. Yeah, I wanted to get your two because I'm a little conflicted by all this, but basically for anyone who doesn't know, Rust was a film shot that was last year in October of 2021, and a cinematographer, unfortunately,
So it was not even last year, it was a year prior.
it was the year prior,
Yeah.
and a cinematographer named Helena Hutchins, who was, I think, like an award-winning cinematographer. She
Yes.
was very renowned in the cinematographer world, and there was a prop gun that was used on the set that was unfortunately had
Cleared.
was uncleared and had a live ammunition in the chamber of that gun, and also found that there was live ammunition on that said set,
Property. Yeah.
which is insane. So, and unfortunately, it misfired and unfortunately killed the cinematographer Helena Hutchins and
Injured.
hurting
Yeah.
injured Jesse Souza, who was the director of it.
Yeah.
And the thing that was the interesting part about it was his first apology, Alec Baldwin's. And he was on George Stephanopoulos' show on ABC, basically saying that, well, when I was there, I had the gun, I cocked the gun back, I didn't pull the trigger, it just magically just did the thing by itself. I can't tell you what happened, but it just, I pulled it, and then all of a sudden it just snapped, and then the gun went off, and then that was it. And basically feigning any and all, responsibility, and this is coming, this was all recorded, this was all an Alec Baldwin show, and if anybody wants to disagree, you can in the comments, but this was what was reported. So now there has been a charge for involuntary manslaughter for Alec Baldwin, and this I was sort of debating whether or not to bring this up, because it feels like it's still kind of a hot debate, especially in film Twitter. Film Twitter is just kind of all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like that's kind of the voice of the people right now about this subject. And it is like, is this justified? Is this something that should be charged for involuntary manslaughter? Although there wasn't really one person to be blamed for. Granted, there's other charges being brought against the armor and I think the first AD. But I wanted to get your 2 cents into all this. Like, would this be justifiable? Like, involuntary manslaughter is a really serious felony. I don't know if it might be justified, but also the other part about this too is that we don't know all. There could be incriminating evidence that we just have no clue what happened.
Yeah.
So there could be a piece of evidence we just have no idea about that could really have, like,
I'm really surprised that there's nothing about the AD. But maybe there's more charges that are coming up soon. Yeah.
There probably is. There
the
probably
worst
is.
part, yeah. I mean, it seems harsh, but when you are undergoing a project like this and you're in a position of power, I feel like you are the one that ultimately has the power to make changes. And the issue, I think, is that
he was also a producer too. I forgot to mention
also, issues were brought up several times prior to this incident for separate things, but about safety and the conditions, and several crew walked because of that, to my knowledge. And those were all opportunities and times when, as a producer of the highest, like, if you're a producer, you can make decisions. So as a decision maker, there was plenty of opportunity to make decisions that might have helped to prevent what has happened.
Yes.
And I think that's the issue, is that there were no steps that showed that he attempted to or listened to the crew's concerns or tried, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the issue, is someone needs to pay to almost be an example to future producers to take these things more seriously,
and what the consequences are.
are. I mean,
yeah, for sure.
Someone died, so it's just
At the end of the day, there was a life to be lost, and it could have, like you said, easily been preventable. Like something that was so somehow overshadowed, which that's the other thing too. Like, because like you said, there was weeks prior where we heard report that Alec Baldwin's stunt double used the gun on a shooting range, and there was like live ammunition, and he said it was dangerous. Like, he voiced his complaints. And then there was also the camera department who sent letters to production, I think,
Mm-hmm.
who was basically like giving throwing caution to the wind for production, saying like, this is unacceptable safety
Right.
conditions. This is not good. And we're going to
Yeah.
walk. And they face all these problems. And that was the other thing too. It's like a lot of people want to say, it's like, well, I don't know if this was justified for Alec Baldwin. Like, maybe it not, but if he was producer, I'd imagine that he had a probably big hand in this set, and any information is all
He would have
via
had.
email.
Right.
You know what I mean? So he got the call sheets, he got the memos, he got the
He got
safety meeting
everything.
notes, he got
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. Because he
So
wasn't like an executive producer. He was a producer,
producer, but his thing on the George Stephanopoulos show, he said, was he was the producer only for the talent, not
Oh.
for production. But again,
So how many other producers were there? Why aren't they?
that's a good question. I'm gonna look that up.
Yeah. So that would be okay, I can see it being maybe if he is the only producer that's being charged. But if he's the sole producer, which I highly doubt it,
Right.
but
And he's not. Apparently there's like 6 or 7 names that I
right.
don't
So
even know
that
who
would
they
be
are.
the question would be what
Yeah.
did if what he claims is that all he did was, because I know producers that just do that, or literally just bring in talent. If that is what he claims, then why aren't the other producers being charged as
Stepping
well?
in. Yeah.
Yes. And that's the part where I don't think we have all the information, because that's weird, because I have heard nothing about the other producers.
That's a really good point. And I didn't even take that to consideration. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 producers.
Right. So that's the part where I'm like, okay, I would want to know if what he says is true. Because that's totally possible. I mean,
that is totally possible.
Take Ursley, for example. If anything were to have happened on Ursley, it would be it would hands down would be my responsibility, because I was in charge of like what could come in and out of the set, the logistics, all that type of stuff. The only other person that like Peyton did more like numbers and shit. Well, she did take over like when I was only directing type thing, but like Candace, for example, was not involved with any of that stuff, right? So I could see if something were to happen that she would have zero involvement with it. So my question then with Rust is, who dealt with the day-to-day operations of the film set? And that's why I'm quite surprised that the AD wasn't listed as one of the people who are getting. So that makes me think that there's going to be more charges that are coming that have yet to be revealed.
And I'm also reading a statement made by Hannah's lawyer, who's the armor on that set, and her lawyer had made a statement saying she did not commit this is coming from NBC News, by the way. She did not commit involuntary manslaughter. Jason Bowles said in a statement, "These charges are the result of a very flawed investigation and an inaccurate understanding of the full facts. We intend to bring the full truth to light and believe Hannah, the armorer, will be exonerated of any wrongdoing by a jury." So, I mean, yeah, so maybe like it feels like there's too many fingers being pointed and not enough shit being followed up with.
Right.
You know what I mean? We have way more questions than answers.
Maybe this was strategic on their part. Maybe they
For sure.
had these two
Probably.
so that they would, in trying to defend themselves, would uproot more info type thing, so I don't know. But I mean, my first question would definitely be what were the other producers doing then,
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing going on with there. And I
Yeah,
even
because
looked. I
there's
haven't seen
always
anything.
going, if what Alec Baldwin says to be true, that he only dealt with talent, then he needs to, in his trial or stuff, I'm sure he's going to point out who dealt with the day-to-day stuff,
Hmm.
because yes, there are producers that only deal with talent. And speaking from experience, their involvement on that hand is usually, hey, I'm going to be involved in this project. If you come on, because we're in the same agency or whatever, like, would so and so will sign on because I'm involved, type of
Right.
thing. So
Yeah.
then they're like, okay, because my friend's in that film and I trust my friend, then yeah, fine, I'll go and be in this movie for a lot less than I usually will work for. So that when I think about people who just deal with talent, that's kind of the involvement. So that, yes, that doesn't have anything to do with the day-to-day logistics of what could have caused a gun to go off,
Hmm.
type thing. So the only reason why is the question of whether he pulled the trigger or did not, and
Which has been proved by the FBI that
right,
there's
that's not
no
possible.
possible way that he
Right.
couldn't have pulled the trigger because
Yeah.
he did.
Yeah. And then the other thing was like, who, if you're given a gun of any sort,
Hmm.
why didn't anybody think to point it at a ground first or up in the air or anywhere, not directly at a person, you know?
Literally directly at a person. Like, and that's, again, so many
Yeah.
questions. Like, it's so hard to concoct an argument or concoct any sort of like statement because there's really nothing going on, especially with like the news of it all. It's like,
Right.
yeah, we see the charges, but we don't see like, okay, well, was there a piece of evidence we don't know about? Like, is there something that transpired that they want to keep from the public?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, and probably because I think like those charges like that are public, right?
I
Am
think
I am
so.
I
Yeah.
wrong? Yeah, okay. So he couldn't. There's no way Alec could hide that, but he could probably, in some way, shape, or form, bury the details uh, of it all. If
Yeah.
there is something evidence wise that just really really puts him in a compromising situation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But it's unfortunate, especially for the victims of the Hutchins family, because they don't really have full answers. And I think they also chased for a lawsuit against Alec Baldwin as well, but I think they had a settlement with that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's sad all around.
Yeah.
And yeah, we probably won't really know the full scope of all this for quite some time. But
Mm-hmm.
this was definitely a head scratcher, even 2 years ago when it happened. It very unfortunate, and it was heartbreaking to see this because a gun, a real gun, like with a real bullet, like what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
It's like how it's like I don't know. It doesn't make sense. Like the level of obliviousness is just it's preposterous, or and then also too, it's really weird to see, like, this is for all the internet people, like seeing like on Twitter and Reddit and all these places, like them coming up with like crazy conspiracies that like, oh yeah, this was planted all along, like from Alec Baldwin himself and shit like that. It's just like we got to calm down with all these conspiracies as well. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, this is just unfortunate, and we just gotta remain hopeful that hopefully the truth will
Justice will be served. Yeah.
justice will be served and the truth will come out,
Come
and
on.
maybe
Yeah.
maybe more charges will be brought up.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows? That's the thing. Is like
So
we don't have enough information. That's for sure.
Nothing. But I mean, don't want to end it on a bad note, but that was the Get Reelisms podcast. We're gonna hopefully do this consistently next week. Next weekend. I don't have anything going on.
I don't think I have either. So
next Sunday. So we're
so
probably gonna do it then.
Yes.
And
unless we both get jobs, because we work. So
yeah,
that's
and
okay,
anything can happen.
Yes.
We're like Batman. Once they show the signal, we have to go. So that's been it with the podcast. Christine, was there anything you want to say before we GTFO?
No, I just happy Lunar New Year, everybody.
Happy Lunar New Year.
Hopes and dreams come true. Don't wait, just do it and make movies.
And it's the year of the rabbit. Right? Those pesky wabbits. It's wabbit season.
Wabbit season. Yes.
All right. That's it. We're gonna go. I'm gonna go, and we'll see you next week, everybody. Toodaloo. We love you. Thank you so much. Bye bye Facebook. Bye bye now. Bye Instagram. Thank you so much. We love you. And goodbye.